Oh.
It's the only person below White Holiday in the Comicsgate phone book. It's my favorite failed clone of Peter Sameti. The YouTube how you doing, Connie? Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to WyzGyz Entertainment. This is your host, Wyman. We're joined today by you're back, Longshadow today. Excuse me. By Mike Murphy.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm hanging in there. How about you?
Good, good, good.
Good.
Wow. So you've got this campaign, Longshadow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Gosh, I was just, as you know, reflecting on how long it's been since you were last here promoting Longshadow. It's been 21 days.
Yeah, so close to when we first launched the campaign, I guess.
That's wild. And as you mentioned, time flies.
It certainly does.
I wonder, before we go into this, would you mind just kind of recapping or going over your origin story?
Yeah, of course, man. Always happy to. I'm Mike, one half of Chibi Comics. Selena Hernandez is the other half, and she's my better half as well. We met at an art school back in Chicago. We're both originally from Chicago. And about a year into our relationship, we decided to ditch everything and move out to the West Coast and make comics for a living, because that's what you do when you're young, and you can make crazy, impulsive choices like that. And so, once we got here to Portland back in 2005, we spent the better part of a decade kind of on the fringes of the mainstream, doing lettering and flatting work here and there, submitting pitches and design docs to comic companies, game companies, some film studios, because there's a couple out here in Portland. And that was kind of our life while we built up our freelance careers. And reached a point after a meeting with IDW where both of us were like, what are we doing? We're kind of trying to get into a party that doesn't really want us in. And it was around that time that CG was becoming a thing, and I was watching one of Ethan's early streams that night after the IDW meeting, and we talked about it and decided to jump into the deep end of the pool. It ended up costing us a lot professionally, but we've more than made up with it with our with a new fan base and new peers that I actually respect and like talking to and interacting with. And so here we are. This is our fourth major campaign, and we've got 2 more launching later this year.
Nice. You mentioned moving to the West like impulsive teenagers do.
Basically, I mean, we were like 23, but still, we're basically teenagers.
But what made you choose Portland over, say, I think there were a bunch of studios in California and also in New York.
Right. So I like we knew we couldn't make New York work just in terms of the budget that we had. Basically that year that we were together in Chicago, we lived together and just saved every penny that we could. And we had enough to live for about a year, but we had to live in an affordable city. And at the time, like Portland was just kind of starting to get this buzz for being a comic town. Like, Bendis had just moved here from Cleveland. And, we were seeing stuff like there was a show that Dave Attell, the comedian, used to have on Comedy Central where he would just go to different cities and like check out the nightlife. and so he did an episode in Portland and like showed the there's like an abandoned school that got remade into a bar / nightclub. So he was hanging out. Yeah, he was hanging out there in a couple other spots, and just everything that we were hearing from those two dudes and some other people just made Portland seem kind of cool and different than what we thought it was. And I'd say for the better part of 10 years it was. I understand it has the legacy of being a hippie town, and there was remnants of that, but for the most part, again, for like 10 years or so, Portland was just kind of this live and let live type of place. And eventually it kind of became like a giant Comic-Con, like spread out across the city. Like you would go shopping and you would see like these creators, you would go to the movies and you'd realize walking out like, oh, hey, there's, like Bendis and his family, or, so-and-so and their family. It was just cool. It's not so cool anymore, but it was cool for a time, and it was, I think, what we needed at that point in our lives.
When you started seeing people, right, like live out in the open,
Yeah.
was there like a celebrity feel to it? Like, did people like rush up to people, other people that they looked up to, and like fanboy and fangirl over them? And
no, it's really weird, man. Especially like at the comic shops, because like New Comic Day, back in the day, like everyone would be there, but a lot of like local Portlanders are like real. I'm not gonna like go full aggro and call them like beta males or whatever, but like they're a lot of people here are just quiet and keep to themselves. So like when like a couple of like known creators were in a shop on New Comic Day, you could tell because there was kind of this like hush tone throughout the shop, but no one really ran up and was like, "Can I get your signature?" Like it doesn't work like that here. Like people tend to leave people alone here in Portland.
well, that part is nice, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, well, I should say again, it was nice for a while, but the way things are now, it's time
Well,
to go.
back then, did people rush up to you saying, "Hey, I know
Um,
your work. Can I get your signature?"
it's happened a couple times. Like what was it, either last year, and yeah, it was last year once the shops reopened. I had like 2 different people recognize me from like signings that we'd done at the store.
Oh wow!
So that was nice. Um, but yeah, man, it's it was a cool scene for a while, and before everyone started turning to douchebags online, and everyone was just cool. Like it was nice, like and I always tell this and no one ever believes me, but even someone like Kelly Sue DeConnick, and how kind of grating her online persona is, she's not really like that in person.
Really?
Like we did a signing with her. It was a free comic book day
All right.
event, and afterwards she walked up to me and Selena and like a couple of our other friends, and she was like, "Can I get a hug?" And
What?
in my brain, I'm like, "You're Kelly Sue DeConnick. Like, shouldn't you be like screeching at me or something?" And and then there was this, and then like a couple months after that, like I was on the escalator going up at a Barnes and Noble, and she was on the escalator going down, and she just looked at me and she was like, "Hi, Mike," and I was like, "Hi, Kelly Sue," and just weird. People are weird here, man.
Whoa!
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. I don't know. I think the popular thing is to say that 2016 broke a lot of people. I don't think it broke people. I think it brought out who people really are.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you definitely see that reflected here in Portland. Like, like half the city is burnt down and everybody's leaving.
Yep. Man, that's that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a ton of weird stories like that where just and sometimes the opposite. Like sometimes you think someone's going to be cool and they're a complete and total dick, and you're just like you're not who I thought you were at all.
Right. It's kind of like the don't ever meet your heroes.
Yeah, sometimes, man. Sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's incredible, and your heroes say everything that you need to hear at that point in your life. And then sometimes, like the whole Kirby quote, like "comics will break your heart, kid."
Out of curiosity, did you actually go and give her a hug?
Oh yeah. Like, look, you get that opportunity. It's like I'm giving you a hug, Kelly. Get in here.
Isn't that like one of those things that Keanu Reeves does, where you have
Right.
your hand
Right.
to the side?
No hover hand. I'm like, if you're getting a hug, you're getting a hug.
Legit hugs.
Yeah.
That's cool. So we got this cool project here, Longshadow, a high fantasy pulp novel. Excuse me. How long were you? How long has this idea been going on?
Well, the character has existed in my head for like over 10 years, because I used to role play as him, both in tabletop and in video games. Basically, anytime there's like a character creation screen, like I roll as Longshadow. So I know the character pretty well inside and out. It was the fantasy world that I kind of had to build from scratch. And I'd say that's been going for like I've been developing it for about like 8 or 9 months at this point. I started in earnest working on the book like last September. Because like with the delays that we had on God's Fear Me and Deepwell, I was just kind of in development hell. Because I wasn't going to launch another project until God's Fear Me was out the door and we were close to fulfilling Deepwell, which is where we're at now. And so, that just kind of left me sitting on my hands. And, I started thinking about what I wanted to do this year and, kind of the amount of output that I wanted. And I wanted something that could be in people's hands in less than 6 months. And I knew that meant, not really relying on an artist, because then I'm at the whims of their schedule. Jeff is still going to be doing spot illustrations, in the interiors. But it's only it's gonna boil down to about like 4 or 5 pages of actual sequential work. If you're just counting the panels. So, that being the case, I knew his turnaround time and how quick he worked, and I'm like, all right, so if I pair that with my writing, this should be able to be in people's hands by like May or June.
All right. When you were over the years creating your character Longshadow and rolling for his stats,
Yeah.
did you ever run into cases where someone else in the party also had a character named Longshadow?
No. What's weird is one of the first, I think it was when I was hanging out with Vinny and promoting this, Liam dropped in. And he's got that what is it, Wonder Island book?
Yeah.
And so I'm talking and Liam's just like hanging out, and all of a sudden he's like, "Where'd you get the name Longshadow from?" And I explained what I just said to you, like, he's basically been my character in video games and RPGs for like a decade. And he's like, that's really interesting. And he asked Vinny if he could play the Wonder Island trailer. And there's a female ogre in Wonder Island named Longshadow.
Oh, oh dear.
So, I mean, look, we chalked it up to great minds. But yeah, like, honestly, I never thought anyone was ever going to use the name Longshadow for a character. Like, what are the odds, you know?
Oh man. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah.
And now, didn't you say, yeah, he's an ogre detective?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, did your character in these RPGs also have a detective aspect to him?
Yeah. It kind of evolved from like, being like a basic Conan type template. Especially like, in like one short D&D campaign that I ran with him, and I play as him in the Elder Scroll games, like going all the way back to like Morrowind. So yeah, like he started off as like just a basic, like, heavy tank adventurer. And I don't know when it started specifically, but I liked the idea of having someone in the group, for like the D&D session, having someone in the group that really focused on intuition and intelligence. Because, I don't know if you've done much role playing, but like DMs love to keep secrets like really close to the chest because they want these big reveals and like, oh shit moments for the players. And I like the idea that Longshadow could be like the type of character to like just drive a wedge right in there and figure it out beforehand.
Did it work out most of the time?
Yeah, it did. Like, I'm pretty good with my rolls, man. Like, I can get between 15 and 20 most of the time.
Whoa. Did it tick off the DMs?
Yeah. A couple times, yeah. But I know what's behind that door.
But then let's suppose you weren't lucky with your rolls and you rolled poorly on intelligence and stuff.
Yeah.
Could you have still used the skill of intuition and stuff like that in the RPG?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple times where you would have to throw a saving roll with like some other trait or stat, and and again, this is going back like almost 12 years at this point, but like, with the exception of like maybe 2 or 3 times, like I usually made it.
Wow, that's a good streak.
Yeah, man.
Oh wow. All right, so let's go ahead and play the trailer here.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Did I rewrite? Is her name Red Locks?
Yeah, red locks.
Kind of like as in red hair.
Yeah.
Is that like an Easter egg for Red Key?
No, not directly. I mean, one of the themes running through most of our books is you'll start noticing a lot of redheads pop up, but that's just because I like redheads.
Because you're restoring the redheads for the world.
Yeah, I'm bringing them back, man.
Yeah.
It's like I'm undoing the snap.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, like there is, like it says, it's the first appearance of the Red Key, and in that shot of him squaring up with Longshadow, like there's a whole bunch of deep cut Easter eggs. So yeah, like we're kind of laying the groundwork for this like multiverse that I'm building up.
Cool. So we're at 24.82 USD for 40 backers. 62% of the fixed goal, 4,000. 25 days left. This is the second round of 30, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got to hit that goal
Yep.
before we run out.
Definitely, let's get this backed. If you haven't already, consider backing this campaign.
Please do.
Looks like a great project. Definitely, if you've already backed it, thank you for your support. Consider backing it again.
Back once, back twice.
Back at 3 times a lady.
There you go.
And if you don't have the means to do so at this time, please share it all over your social media so we get more eyeballs on it. Every bit helps.
Absolutely.
Longshadow and the Return of Pulp Entertainment.
I figured it was time.
Now, what made you decide to take Longshadow's first story into a pulp novel versus a floppy or a graphic novel?
Sure. It was two things. The first one being, I like the format, and here in the States, the idea of pulp might be a dead format, but and I think we talked about this last time I was hanging out. Like basically all over the world, like it's still a thing. Like, in Italy, while pulps were popular in Italy, you had the giallos, the yellow covers, and then I was hanging out with Raging Golden Eagle like a week or two ago, and he brought up the excellent point that I completely forgot about, which is over in Japan, they have these things called light novels, which are basically pulp novels. They're manga stories told in prose, but they have spot illustrations throughout them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it over there, it's still a just like manga, it's a quite popular form of media. So it's basically just over here that the format of mixing writing with spot illustrations has kind of faded away. But again, I really think that there's a viability to the format, and I'd like to be one of the creators to like usher in a return to it.
What do you think might have contributed to the seeming lack of interest in the pulp style in the States?
I mean, I think it was just the creation of comic books. Like the pulps for the most part kind of evolved into comics. It became the primary mass market form of entertainment for everybody, rich or poor. And pulps lasted a little bit during the golden age of comics, but I think it was just a thing of like they couldn't compete. I mean, you had at first like collection of newspaper strips, which I'm sure kids were clamoring for, and then you started getting original comic book magazines, and that's where you had like Action Comics and start rolling out. So it was just I think it was primarily a kids medium, and I think the kids just gravitated towards the comics, man.
Mm. That makes sense.
But like the pulps, if we're talking about pulp as a format, as a media, it's just a delivery device. Like, sure, the proto superhero stuff like the Shadow and Doc Savage and the Phantom, sure, that stuff was popular. But you also had crime pulps, you had fantasy pulps, with Robert E. Howard, like Conan and Solomon Kane. You had horror, like Lovecraft would dip his toes into pulp sometimes. Like it's just a delivery device, and you can do any genre. It doesn't have to be limited to just superheroes or proto superheroes.
Did Pulp? I don't even remember because it's been so long since I've actually picked up a Pulp book. But
Yeah.
like the early comics, they were made out of newsprint.
Mhm.
Were Pulps also made out of newsprint?
Yeah, they were. It was technically newsprint, but it was a super low grade of newsprint. Like I've heard stories from like my dad and other collectors where you would get some of these old pulp magazines, and like little bits and chunks of like pulped wood would actually like fall out of the books when you would open them.
I can see that happening.
Yeah. It's kind of like what they do over in Japan with the giant like manga compendiums that come out every week. I've heard the same thing. Like collectors of those out here in the States have said, like, yeah, like sometimes you'll just open it and like a giant chunk will fall out of the book just because they're produced so cheaply, so quickly.
Wow. So is this Preston Acevedo?
Yep, that's the one and only Preston. So this is his alt cover, and this is Red Locks and her sword going up against maybe going up against, or maybe just hanging out with her buds. Yeah, I just gave him the instructions, go full for Zeta, and he ran with it.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, he like he does with all of our covers. He killed it.
Wow. Longshadow is an ogre detective for hire, living and operating out of a small village of Colon Brick. COB. In the rowdy tavern known as Amber Glass, he takes on cases and often finds himself way over his head. Such is the case when a mysterious woman with mystic abilities calls on him to venture into the lands of Old Country. His task to hunt down the deadly vial being known only as the Prince of Echoes. Accepting the job, Longshadow is catapulted into an adventure that will affect not only the rest of his life, but the entire kingdom of Elos. Always starts with a dame.
Always, man. This is a noir detective story after all.
Is this artwork all done in like ink wash and ink and ink wash?
Yeah, I told Jeff, like, I gave him an easy out. I told him like look, it can just be the line art. We're printing this in black and white, and it's mostly prose and text. And he was like, yeah, I know, but I want to add some washes into it.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it really makes the images pop. I think they look gorgeous.
Yeah. This guy's head in the lower left corner.
Yeah. Anyone who's read The Gods Fear Me will probably recognize that head.
Red Key looks disgusted.
Yeah, this is this is Red Key way further along in his timeline than when we're first going to meet him in book 1.
Okay.
But even still, like, he's like, "What the hell am I doing here?"
That's a mighty beefy sword.
Yep. Yeah. So, Longshadow's blade is called Elder Pain, like a pane of glass, and in my world, dragons are, if not extinct, then close to extinct. And when their bodies rot and their skeletons begin to fossilize, their bones turn into a diamond-like substance.
Oh, neat.
So his blade is actually formed from. I haven't decided on specifically what part, but that's the fossilized remains of a dragon.
Oh, neat. That's really cool.
Thank you. And of course, Red Key holding on to a katana. Only one other book we've done that features katanas, so you can imagine where he got it from.
So when do you plan on releasing a Elder Pain letter opener?
Oh, I'd love to, man. Like I really want to focus on our main stretch goal, the world building book. But if by some miracle, if we could get past that and like into like 10 or 12,000 territory, I'll see if I can do a plastic sculpt of the sword.
All right, some background on Pulps. And then the Kingdom of Elos, illustrated by Mike Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
This was a map that you sold on the campaign, right?
Yeah. I listed it as original art, and it was one of the first pieces of original art to go.
What paper did you make this on?
It's on Bristol, and then I found once I cleaned it up in Photoshop, I went looking for high resolution parchment images, and I found a really nice one that kind of it adds a bit of tooth. So I dropped that under the art, and so it looks like it's when we do the print, the mini print, it's going to look like it's on parchment.
So the one that sold though, is that gonna?
No, that's just on Bristol.
On Bristol board.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Perfect time to bring back Pulp.
I hope so. I'm working hard to make sure it is. And this is Sweet Alice. She's the Girl Friday of the book. She is the head barkeep of Amber Glass, as you can see in the background there. And this is our prequel novella, which takes place 8 years before the start of book 1. It's called A Murder in Amber Glass.
Crowdfunding campaign in the spirit of pulp production. Funding goal will cover the cost of interior spot illustrations produced by our cover artist Jeff Lasley, as well as printing and shipping. 80 of the planned 112 pages of prose writing are already complete. We want this book in your hands fast.
Absolutely.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with his design.
Our main stretch goal, set at 8K, is a world guide designed to emulate the look and feel of old D&D monster manuals. It'll be filled with illustrations from some of your favorite independent artists, including Peter Gilmore, Sim Poitier, 6 a.m. Comics, Selena Hernandez, Donald DeLay, Stephanie Renee, Passion for Drawing, and more. You'll have to shed some light on this for me.
Yeah, sure.
I am most familiar with Selena's work in chibi
Yeah.
type art.
Yeah.
Because I see her stuff on Instagram all the time.
Mhm.
Does she do other styles besides chibi, or is it going to have some chibi looking characters?
So she's not going to be doing a chibi per se. She, she does primarily work in chibis, but she also has this style that's it's kind of along the lines of Dan Parent. If anyone knows who that is, if not, she does. He's one of the main modern day Archie artists.
Oh, okay. All right.
So yeah, she also has like kind of a animated Archie cartoonish style.
All
And
right.
yeah, like it's not going to be like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's not like I'm going to drop like an animated figure in this dark fantasy world. But there's a specific character that I think would look good done in her style.
All right, nice. Yeah, a bunch of good creators there.
Yeah, and like Narwhal is signed on too.
Really? Oh, nice.
Yeah. So again, if we can hit that goal, especially people that back at the swag bag level and get the book and the prequel novella, if we hit this goal, like you're going to be getting 3 books for your money.
How long is the D&D Monster Manual going to be?
I'm guessing it's going to be between 24 and 32 pages.
Wow. All right. All books printed novel size 7.5 by 5.5. These will not be the size of a comic.
Yeah. Just to make that clear for anyone before going into backing.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. All physical backers will get a copy of this awesome print by Mighty Sim.
Yep. Yeah, I thought he knocked that out of the park.
Oh man, looks like he's getting attacked from all directions.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and he had an interesting interpretation for the sword. I like what he's building there. The idea that the center of the sword is thicker and more opaque, and the edges are kind of like filed down like razor thin, so they're more transparent.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and I like his use of cross hatching.
Yeah, it's a really nice piece. As always, Sim continues to improve by leaps and bounds, and he has become one of my favorite illustrators.
Yeah. He's a workhorse.
Yeah, for sure, man.
New Pinup of Longshadow by Butch Cleaver creator Matt Burke.
Yeah, Matt's been a huge supporter of this campaign, and he worked this up and sent it to me, and gave me permission to list the original art for it for sale.
All right.
So yeah, any Butch Cleaver fans out there, if you want an original piece by him focusing on Longshadow, there it is.
I like what he did with the arms coming around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of course, you gotta have your grog.
Yeah, of course. Perfectly balanced.
All right. So let's check out the tiers here.
Of course.
Swag bag. what does that include? Because all I've seen is a map.
Sure, sure. So the swag bag comes with the book itself, the prequel novella. You're going to be getting a trading card, a print of the map. You'll be getting a Longshadow sticker, and you'll also be getting a mini poster of the main cover.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of standard for what we do on all of our campaigns. Anyone who recently got the Gods Fear Me should have a pretty good idea of the amount of stuff you'll be getting.
We've got the digital edition, Longshadow digital edition. So it's a book, the main book itself, right?
Yeah, just the book.
Then you got the Longshadow main cover. This is the physical book.
Yeah, physical.
All right. That's very reasonable. The Preston Acevedo alt cover. So that's the physical book with the alt cover.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then if you wanted one of each.
Covers. Oh, cool. What happened here? It says estimated shipping original May 2022.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know why it did that. I've been adding tiers little and little as the campaign has gone on, and every time I do, it does that revisement thing, and I'm like, but I'm still listing the same date. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
Then you got the digital chibi pack.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So you've got Samurais and Dinosaurs. You've got The Gods Fear Me and Longshadow.
Yeah. So basically, I gratuitously stole this from Mandy. I think it's a really smart idea. Every time that we have a new campaign, we're going to add the chibi pack to that campaign, and we'll just be slapping a book on top of the stack. So for new readers, who discover us with each successive campaign, if they want to get caught up in like one fell swoop, they can either get the digital or physical version of the chibi pack, and they'll get everything that we've printed to date.
Oh. So down the road, you'll have like 10, 15 books in digital format.
Yeah, and physical. We had a physical version of the chibi pack, but it sold out.
Oh, holy cow.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, all right. Longshadow and Red Key Clash.
Yeah, so these, the promotional images that Jeff produced for the campaign, he gave the okay for me to sell the original art for them.
Cool. So this is the original art. Do you get anything else with it, or is it the original art only?
You'll be getting a copy of the book with the art.
All right. Cool. Now we're at premium swag number 3 of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah. The premium swag is you get all the standard swag bag stuff, but you also get one of the original character design pieces that I worked up for Jeff to reference. So the first two have sold out. Current one up for sale is the Prince of Echoes himself. So yeah, you'll be getting a 5x7 black and white illustration along with everything in the swag bag.
5x7. What kind of paper is it on?
Bristol.
And so as soon as 3 of 8 sells, then you're going to post up there 4 of 8.
Yeah. I started by posting them 2 at a time. I might go back to that. Like I have to find the rest of them. Our office is getting kind of cluttered because we're in the early stages of moving. Yeah, but I was posting them 2 at a time. I don't know where the 4th one is, but when I do, I'll post that one up regardless of if the print sells or not.
All right. The mini echoes get drawn in.
Yeah, so you know, it's only in the past like 2 weeks or so that I've actually talked about the Prince of Echoes. I wanted to do a different take on a vampire story, and so instead of consuming blood, the Prince of Echoes, think of him like a spiritual take on something like The Thing. Instead of consuming blood, he consumes a person's, you know, soul, spirit, whatever you want to think of it as, and inhabits the shell of their body. And then when the shell is used up, he moves on to the next, you know, victim or host. So there's going to be a point in the book where we see maybe not all, but a good percentage of the past hosts slash lives that he's taken over, and you can be drawn in as one of those victims.
Oh, all right. So it'll be one image with Prince of Echoes, and you'll see
Yeah,
the 6 people
right,
represented on there.
right, and then some. It's going to be a big image. It's probably going to take up a whole page.
Oh, okay. All right. Because if I remember from our last conversation, many of the images will be like half page or
Yeah, like they're going to vary. You know, some will take up a third, some will take up half, and you know we'll have a couple that like, and they'll mostly be for like the chapter heading pages. Some of them will take up a whole page.
okay. Yeah, we've got that brick pinup.
Yep.
Cool. And each of the pinups, if comes with a copy of the book.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then the prequel novella original.
Yeah, so if anyone wants some artwork featuring Sweet Alice by me, this is your chance.
Out of curiosity, to get the circle in the background, did you use a protractor or did you freehand it?
I used a cup.
Oh, well, that works.
Yeah. Yeah, I penciled around the cup, and then once it was scanned in Photoshop, I just you know, dropped a circle down and then erased the center of the circle.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And this also comes with a copy of the book?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Then you got the main cover original art.
Mm-hmm.
So it's full color and everything?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've got it here somewhere. Jeff sent it to me a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it's gorgeous in person. And I told him, I was like, look, man, in Photoshop I can just add the yellow. You can just, you know, you can just paint the live area. And he was like, no, I'll do the whole thing. So like this whole thing is painted, including the yellow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I thought that was applied using like a paint tool.
Yeah, no, I gave him an out.
Wow. All right. That's cool.
Yeah, so it looks really beautiful in person.
So how big is that?
That's same thing. It's 11 by 17.
Oh man. All right, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Then we get the Preston Acevedo cover original.
Yeah.
$4.50. Nice.
Yeah, considering some of his pieces have gone for like $800 or $900 on auction streams, I thought that was a fair price for a black and white piece by him.
Oh yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, the Chibi pack, the physical copy of the Chibi pack is sold out.
Yeah.
You only had 4 copies of each left.
Yeah, which is something we're going to have to take into account because as the older books, their print runs like run out, that'll determine how many we can sell of the entire thing. So yeah, this is I think there's a chibi pack on our leftover campaign for the Gods Fear Me. If that one sells out, that's the end of our first printings of Samurai and Dinosaurs. So whatever swag bag comes after this, or not swag bag, a chibi pack comes after this, that'll be a new printing of Samurai and Dinosaurs.
Yeah, second printing. Do you think on a second printing you'll do a new cover, or?
I don't know. Like I was for like a year, I was convinced that I was going to do a new cover, but I really like that Kelsey cover, man.
I know that's why I had to ask, because it's a gorgeous cover.
Like I think what we might do, like anyone who's backed us knows that our first printings, we go with this like smooth but textured cover. People really like it, and I think it feels good too. I think for the second printing to differentiate them, it'll just be a smooth cover, like a matte finish.
Oh, okay, yeah, that could work. And then
Yeah.
a little note on the inside saying it's second printing.
Right.
Cool. When you do your campaigns, do you typically print like, I think people recommend 10-15% over?
Yeah. Yeah, we print as many as we can afford to print. So, obviously that's the base for each of the backers, and we add at least 15% on top of that for like lost or damaged copies. But it usually breaks down to about like 400 copies. I would love to do like 500 or even 1,000, but usually there's just not enough room in the budget for that.
Do you have another place like a website or an eBay store where you've started also selling previous issues?
Yeah, so we have an eBay storefront with a couple copies of Samurai still listed that people can access through CG Now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and once we fulfill the leftover campaign for the Gods Fear Me, whatever copies are left over, we'll probably throw those up on eBay and then post that to CG Now as well.
All right. They meet original art. I love when creators leave up, the ones that sold out,
Right.
because it reminds me of what I missed out on. And it also tells me, hey, if you don't want to miss out on this next time, you better get on it faster.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think $80 for an original piece by Jeff is a steal, especially considering most of his commissions start at like 125.
Hoo-wee.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. That is a steal. Premium swag 1 of 8 already scooped up.
Yep.
Premium 2 of 8 already scooped up.
And the map.
Of course, the map.
Yeah. Yeah, people like their maps, man.
Yeah. I think anytime you're dealing with world building, any sort of world building, RPGs, things like that, maps are going to be pretty. They're going to be a wanted item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it started. I designed it just so that I had reference for the book, so that I knew, like I had a rough idea of where stuff was in my head, but I just needed to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I had like the rough worked out, I was like, I might as well just blow this up and actually do it as like an actual illustration. And like if anyone's interested in it, cool. And if not, it's just this weird thing that's on the campaign page. And yeah, like one of the first things that sold. So
maybe next time you should sell it for a little more.
I know. Like I could have pushed it to 200.
But that's cool. Yeah, I mean, with with maps, if you go through each of the successive stories, then you can refer back to the map and say,
Right.
okay, this is where they are in the story now. They're
Right.
checking out this town.
Yeah, I basically I needed, once I started like the larger world building stuff, like, where's the kingdom? Like where does the king reside? And like there's some stuff late in the story in Old Country with the prince where I needed to know specifically how far away the prince's tower was from the coastline and stuff like that. It just made sense to work it out.
Do not travel to the Four Fingers.
Yeah.
So once you fulfill this, are you planning on releasing more stories of Longshadow?
Yeah, man. So assuming we find our audience, which it looks like we are, I'd love to do one of these a year to start the year off, because the entire point of this was, we've got these two larger campaigns coming out later this year, and those are going to take the better part of a year to get into people's hands. And I like the idea of something quick that I can have out to people in less than 6 months. So as long as the audience is interested, I'll produce one of these a year for the foreseeable future.
Nice.
I've got ideally 3 trilogies worked out in my head. So
Ooh, wow.
we'll see how far into that I can get.
Well, have you put all these down to paper?
No, I mean it's pretty simple and blocked out in my head. I've talked about it publicly. Basically, one of the things that I want to do with Longshadow is I want to push the fantasy genre ahead a little bit. And I know sometimes like it can come off egotistical when I say this, but I feel like in sci-fi, in crime, in superhero, whatever, in most other genres, you can get a whole bunch of different types of stories. But it feels like in fantasy, there's maybe only 6 or 7 different stories that you get, and it's just kind of like shuffled, over and over and over again. Like if you've read, call it a dozen fantasy novels, I feel like you've kind of read them all. And so what I want to do with Longshadow is the first trilogy is very much a traditional fantasy epic.
Uh-huh.
But then, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first couple pages of the first book.
Okay.
Hey, LDG. Basically, Longshadow is cursed with immortality. And so what I want to show is I want to show the evolution of a fantasy world. So the second trilogy is going to be set in a modern day setting. I use the examples of Scotty Young's Middle West, or Bright, the Netflix film that Max Landis wrote. I use those as kind of rough examples of where I want to go with the second trilogy. So, seeing the Kingdom of Elos more in a modern setting. And then with the third trilogy, we're going to go full Warhammer 40K. Like, I want to show the distant future. Because I feel like that's something that we just don't do in fantasy. Like, we stick with countrysides and dragons and horses and all of these tropes that
Mhm.
come with fantasy, but it's like, you know, like you gotta build on that at a certain point, you know.
Definitely. That makes sense.
So yeah, like we're basically going to see a radical evolution of a fantasy setting through the eyes of Longshadow.
And do you have plans to one day do like a tabletop RPG for the Murphyverse?
Maybe not the Murphyverse, but I'd love to have multiple gaming stuff for Longshadow. Like, I'd love to have a tabletop. I'd love to have like an overhead 16-bit RPG for Longshadow. Yeah, I'd like to do some cool stuff with Longshadow. Like, if we can continue building the audience over like 10 years.
Nice. Let's play this trailer again.
Let's do it.
Did you make that trailer?
Yeah, I did.
Good job.
Thank you.
Where'd you find the music?
Yeah, you know, like, putting these trailers together has become like my favorite part of running a campaign. I just, you know, I take like an hour and a half and just go digging through royalty-free music tracks.
Wow, nice. I wish I had that patience.
Yeah, you know, it's that thing of like, you know, when you hear it, you know it.
Yeah. All right. So if you haven't already, everyone, go ahead and back this book. Definitely is a cool looking one, to be sure.
Please do, and thank you.
Want to see this get funded? And if you've already backed it, thank you so much for your support. Appreciate it. Consider backing again. Back it once, back it twice, back it 3 times, lady.
Exactly.
And if you don't have the means to do so at this time, please consider sharing it all over your social media. Were there any other points or things you wanted to mention about the title?
No, I think we covered all the bases, man.
Right on. I'm going to give you the floor. Will you share with the world how you can be found on social media?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter and TikTok at chibi_Mike. And you can also find me on YouTube at the Chibi Mike, all one word. I'm going to be producing content again for my YouTube channel, probably starting next week. So sign up and come hang out. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Nice. And you can find me at my usual haunts. I'm at Twitter at WyzGyzTweets, on Twitch at WyzGyz Entertainment, all one word, and YouTube under WyzGyz Entertainment. If you're doing a search, make sure your WyzGyz is one word, WyzGyz. Want to thank everyone in chat for joining us. You are the best. Be sure and thanks also to those who watched this on replay. And thanks most especially to our very special guest, Mike Murphy.
Well, thank you, man.
My pleasure. You have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you on the next stream. Bye.
Later.
Final guest that is the only person below White Holiday in the Comicsgate phone book. It's my favorite failed clone of Peter Sammetti. The YouTube translation. WyzGyz. How you doing, Conrad? Welcome to the show.